my name's Ken, and I'm with the local 509. I'm really glad that you guys were able to come out and join me today from your restaurant. I know you guys don't get a lot of time off. But I'm here today to talk to you about the union, about how we organize workers to protect themselves from being exploited in your workplace, and how we're fighting for fairer wages. So maybe we can start just, what are your names?
I'm Shirley.
Becca.
I'm May.
Great. Well, you guys probably know, the restaurants in this city, those owners are making lots of money, right? And I'm sure you guys are barely scraping by with, especially, high cost of housing and all of that. Actually, what is the rate that you guys make here?
Well, the pay could be better, but what I really would like is for our boss to stop making all these inappropriate comments to us.
Yeah, it feels like there's a culture of sexual harassment around here.
Well, sexual harassment is just one of the ways that bosses use to intimidate workers and to keep you from speaking up, okay? Did you know that the union that I work for in New York City, they've pulled together workers, and they actually just won a $15 an hour minimum wage there. What do you guys think about making $15 an hour?
Sounds great. Right now I only make $10 an hour and it barely pays for childcare and my T-Pass.
We'd all like to make more money, but if we speak up, our boss is just gonna fire us.
Yeah, I'm the only one working in my family right now, so I really can't risk getting fired.
Yeah, no, I really hear you. It's not easy to fight for what we deserve, and especially if we're doing it just as individuals, right? In New York, like I said, they won because the workers actually came together. They've organized and formed a union. And they didn't do it just at one restaurant, but they did it at hundreds of restaurants. And together, they then had the power to fight and win fair wages. So you should know too, with a union, you get legal protection from being fired just for being involved with the union. And that's really why I'm here today, because I'd really like you to consider joining the 509. Right, and join with many of the other restaurant workers around the city. So I have these cards. I'm going to just pass them out. If you're really like you to take a look at this, and if you are ready to commit, we'd like you to sign this card today.
Well, I'll think about it, but how is this going to help us get our boss to stop harassing us all the time?
Well, with a union, not only will you be able to win the higher wages, but you'll also be able to have the power to improve your working conditions. So I think by having that power, you can then address the harassment issue as well. So May, do you think you'll want to take a step by joining the union today?
I'll think about it, and maybe we'll talk to each other more about it.
I definitely need to think about it.
All right, so let's go ahead and I'll set up a time to follow up with you guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
All right, well, now that we all know each other and have introduced ourselves, let me say a little bit more about why I'm here. I organize with restaurant workers all over the city, and I really wanted to meet with you all today to hear more about your experiences working at your restaurant, and what are some of the issues that you're dealing with. So, yeah, happy to hear what you have to say.
Well, I've worked here for a while, and honestly, it's not the worst restaurant I've worked in. But sometimes our boss does make inappropriate comments, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable. I'd like to do something about that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that you're having to deal with that. As a man, I don't quite experience the same thing, but I do know, and I've heard many stories about situations like that happening. May, Beck, I'm curious to know, what have your experiences been like?
I've definitely noticed that too.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious when I'm just trying to, do my job, make a living, and, mind my own business.
Yeah. He's really a jerk, and I've noticed that the women servers here make a lot less than the men.
So I'm hearing that, you guys are dealing with a boss that may be that is mistreating some of you, but also that there might be a difference between how the men and women are being treated and paid here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Shirley. We're making less than they are, and it's hard enough making ends meet now.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of the money, I'm curious, how is the restaurant you're working at doing?
I think the restaurant's doing really well. For us that are working in the kitchen, we don't make tips or anything, so we make the same amount of money when it's really busy. So when it's crazy in the kitchen, in that hot kitchen, the restaurant's making lots more money, and, we're getting paid the exact same amount for working our asses off.
I hadn't really thought of that. The wait staff, we do get tips, but the kitchen staff doesn't. That's a really good point.
Yeah, so there are some variations, but also, the restaurant seems to be doing quite well. So the folks who own the restaurant are making quite a lot of money, right? But you guys are still getting paid the same. Why do you think this is happening?
I don't know, but getting harassed just makes me want to avoid dealing with the management rather than confronting him about any wage differences. There's all these underlying issues that make working very difficult, especially when you need a job.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's a tough situation to be in, and especially if you're feeling like your boss can intimidate you. Well, I'm just curious. Seems like some of you are feeling the same way. What do you think you can do to address the situation?
Well, I wonder, whether we could go together to talk to the restaurant owner about our loss. Whether that's a possibility.
I don't know, who do you think that he's gonna believe, us or our boss?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think we can do to deal with that situation?
Well, a lot of the other, especially women that I've been working with who work in other restaurants, they have been dealing with very similar issues. So maybe a next step, would you be interested in meeting with some of them who've been dealing with some of the same issues?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Some of them have actually, they've said, they would love to hear and connect with others and offer their support. So, yeah, so I can definitely make that happen.
Okay, that sounds like a good next step.
Yeah. We're for it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and make that happen. I'll be back in touch about when we can schedule that next meeting with some of these other workers.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
In the first scenario, he was very hell-bent on speaking about the workers getting higher wages and how he didn't really want to talk about the sexual harassment that you were experiencing. Also in the first one, he kept referring to you as guys repeatedly, versus the second time, he only said it once. I was counting.
That was totally
That's a really good
unconscious. Actually, it was not part of the script.
We're all
But it
learning.
kept happening. So I thought that was very
Interesting. Yeah.
because you weren't speaking about sexual harassment in the workplace, and it felt like he didn't want to approach it in the first one. And he was like, well, this is what we've done in New York, and I'm sure that was taken care of, but it was really about this. And then the second one, he was just like, I'm sorry that that's how you feel, it makes me feel bad as a person. He connected emotionally, and he said there's other women who have also felt that way. I'm sure that you can speak with them, and I'll get in touch. But in the end of both of them, he did make a plan to get in touch with both of you. All of you.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. He had an agenda in both scenarios, which was, to build power, grow the union. But in the first scenario, there was a way in which his agenda was a little bit more rigid. He wanted to kind of really focus around this line around Fight for 15 and wages, and wasn't kind of able to be flexible enough to really meet these women where they were at, which was that they were really concerned about this culture of sexual harassment in the restaurant.
There were a lot of assumptions in the first one, and I think this, going back to last week, we worked a lot on that, about meeting the person where they're at and not making assumptions about, what's going on, but kind of, pulling from them to find out where they want to start. So that was a contrast for me.
Right, he sort of drew out the issues rather than framing the issues.
In the first scenario, it wasn't really a conversation. It was more like him asking, "Oh, do you want to join the fight for 15?" And then it was more like a yes or no question.
Uh-huh.
But like the second time, it was more of opening up to hear the working experience.
Yeah, thank you for drawing that out, because I think even I had to write the script for these, and I was when I was trying to write the one that was a little bit more kind of open-ended problem posing, I kept finding myself writing like yes or no questions even for that, because we're just so programmed to do that. And you know, just even asking an open-ended question, it's such a specific kind of tool that creates a whole different feeling in the conversation.
It seemed like, yeah, in the first piece, Penn had a goal, and his goal was to get them to sign up for the union or sign their cards. And then in the second one, his approach was, I'm here to support them, and like maybe my goal is also to get them to sign up, but I'm willing to offer other forms of support that respond to their needs as they articulate them. And I was thinking about how the restaurant workers would have left each meeting. In the first case, they would have felt, okay, like, I'm gonna consider this, I have a lot of fear about it, and I don't know that Penn, the organizer, is gonna, you know, support my needs, and I just have to sort of evaluate, you know, these various things on my own. And I think it would still be isolating, whereas I felt like after the second one, they would have walked out thinking, oh, like maybe we can build a relationship with this person, and you know, maybe there's some trust, and Penn's listening to us, and so I think just the emotional tenor of how they would have left the meeting would have been completely different.
So I guess I'm just trying to draw out, like, I don't think we tried to set it up where the first scenario was like a bad scenario, and the second one was good. I think we did try in the second one really to open up a problem posing approach. But there are points in time where the first approach may be appropriate, at least from the union's perspective, right? And that may come down to, for instance, like, even in our own organizing,
Yep.
Jean was part of the organizing group before we had a union and got recognized. We had to figure out who was supportive, start to draw people into kind of a group that said, hey, we want to establish a union. And that was all fine and well. We had to really listen to people.
Yep.
But then at a certain point, it's like, you know what? We now have forced the administration to allow us to take a vote. We need numbers, and we need to win that vote. So, you can bet when we got to that point, it was like those cards became very, very important. And frankly, I think the thing was we weren't trying to waste people's time either, right? So if we came to you and you're like, I have all these other issues and I'm not sure about a union, we had to assess, is it worth continuing to try to engage you at this moment, right? And waste your time, or, maybe go in a direction that we didn't have the resources to do, versus, okay, we're going to go on to someone else who we think might actually sign this card. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and I think it's like with all of these popular education methods that we're offering, it's not to say that these are always the right or the better methods, but to just have the clarity and awareness to understand the differences and make decisions about what kinds of approaches we want to use, when and why. Okay, so we're gonna, one more comment, sorry, Lydia.
That's okay. I just wanted to add that sometimes I think, like, to Penn's comment about like what your circumstances are, it can actually be maybe more damaging to a relationship when you use problem solving as like a frame, and then actually your objective is completely different, because then that really, and people can tell, and then immediately there's just like, you're being fake, like stop pretending.
Absolutely.
So there's so that was a helpful clarification too, that like don't just sort of like apply problem solving or problem posing sort of regardless of the circumstance.